This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
She's made up her mind to live pretty smart. Learn to budget responsibly right from the start. She spends a little less and puts more into savings. Keeps her blood pressure low and credit score raises. She's cutting debt right out of her life. She tracks her cash flow on a spreadsheet at night.
Boring money moves make kinda lame songs, but they sound pretty sweet to your wallet. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865.
All right, thank you, Scott Shannon. Thanks to all of you for being with us. Write down our toll-free telephone number. It's 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. It's really fascinating to watch the left, the radical left in this country. They don't care about simple, basic, fundamental, 85-15, 90-10, 80-20 issues. If they are that out of touch and they don't understand that Americans in small towns and big cities want law and order and safety and security, I don't know what they're thinking. And by the way, we have a lot of news to break today because it turns out, according to the D.C. police union chief, apparently complaining that police all over the Metropolitan Police in Washington, D.C. are being pressured to falsify violent crime statistics. The D.C. police union chief, quote, to evade public scrutiny, Metropolitan Police Department leadership is deliberately falsifying crime data, creating a false narrative of reduced crime while communities suffer, which goes dead set against the big narrative, the big lie that, oh, no, violent crime is down to a 30-year low. Well, yeah, if you cook the books, I'm sure that it is down to a 30-year low. But this is what this goes back to, if you remember, 4 years we were lied to repeatedly about the border being closed and the border being secure. Biden said it. Every Democrat said it. Kamala Harris said it. Mayorkas said it. Borders closed, borders closed, borders closed. I can play it. I won't waste your time. But they all promised that the border was closed, border was secure. We all knew otherwise because our eyes on a regular basis. Now, the state-run legacy media mob, officially now dead, gone, and buried, rest in peace, they did not do their job. They did not inform their viewers. They did not inform people that listen to them that the border was not secure. And we had all the images you could ever want, need, or desire to prove that they were just flat out lying to us. And they didn't care. All they cared about was protecting Joe Biden. They were nothing but an extension of the Biden press office, just like they knew he was in a steep cognitive decline. We first reported on his cognitive decline in 2019, just like they knew inflation wasn't transitory. And they wanted to do everything they could do to smear, slander, besmirch, just like the media. They think of all the lies that they told. They're just as guilty as the people involved in the Russia hoax because they peddled the lies, they peddled the conspiracy theories, for pretty much 3 straight years, but they peddled it ever since, and some of them are still peddling that big lie. They never told the truth about Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian disinformation dossier. Why didn't they tell the truth? Why didn't they look at the double standard when it came to, Hillary Clinton's top secret classified information on her server or servers? Or why didn't they talk about the 4 locations where Joe Biden had top secret classified information? Remember, Donald Trump was a former president. His Mar-a-Lago was raided. Why weren't Joe Biden's 4 locations raided? Why wasn't Hillary's office or Hillary's home raided? Remember, the Presidential Records Act actually gave Donald Trump protections that neither one of them had. Why didn't the media report that Mar-a-Lago is not worth $18 million? Because they didn't care. They just wanted to get Trump along with Letitia James and Alvin Bragg. Why didn't they report on the law in New York was very clear and how the statute of limitations had run out on what was a legal non-disclosure agreement that was labeled a legal expense that hired a real lawyer to negotiate the deal, and then somehow they were able to manufacture 34 felony counts. Nobody cared about Donald Trump's rights. They didn't care that attorneys generals and DAs ran on a platform to get one man, one family, one organization. They didn't care about any of it. And they're just as complicit. There's been a lot of lying and a lot of... Now, the net result of it is, rightly, nobody gives a damn what they say, and nobody trusts these people anymore. How can you trust them? They have a political agenda. And, just like in this case, here the president, why would they not report simple, basic, fundamental truths like we're going to tell you right now? Why wouldn't they point out that the president has the right under Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, which would place the Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control? Why wouldn't they point out the fact that of every country in the entire world, by far, by more than twice as much, that Washington, D.C., the capital of our country, has the highest homicide rate per 100,000 people than every other country. Countries you'd never expect. You wouldn't think that Uruguay would have a homicide rate per 100,000 of 16.1, and Washington D.C. they're number one at 41 per 100,000. Baghdad is, who would think that Baghdad is safer than Washington, D.C. in terms of the homicide rate at only 15.2 per 100,000? Or that Havana, Cuba, only 4 per 100,000 versus 41 in Washington, D.C. Or that Nigeria or Panama City, Panama, or Brazil or Costa Rica or Bogota, Colombia, or Mexico City, Mexico, or Lima, Peru, or Ethiopia, Buenos Aires in Argentina, Nairobi, Kenya, San Salvador, El Salvador, Istanbul, dramatically lower. El Salvador, 1.9 per 100,000. Washington, D.C., 41 per 100,000. And here's where it gets even more sinister. Because, if you go back to when the president gave his speech before a joint session, and all those illegal immigrants I was just talking about, unvetted, allowed in the country, known terrorists, murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers, all let into the country. And at the joint session speech, Democrats so hate Donald Trump when the president recognized the family of Lake and Riley, who was out jogging and brutally murdered on a jogging trail. You would think Democrats would have a little bit of heart and soul and compassion and a conscience and stand up and give some type of support for the family of Lake and Riley. No, they didn't stand. They sat. Or the family of little Jocelyn Nungary, 12 years old, and she was brutally murdered after she was raped violently in Houston, Texas. They didn't stand for her mother, Alexis, either. We just had the guy that was responsible for the killing of Rachel Morin, getting life in prison, but she was a mother of 5. And not one time, not once, did any Democrat that I know of ever reach out to any of these families that had loved ones either murdered or raped or victims of these heinous violent crimes. And whatever Democrat runs for office, Gavin Newsom clearly has his eyes on the White House. And there will be a list of every Californian in that sanctuary state paradise, that socialist utopia that he runs and that he's been a leader in for all these decades, you don't think the names of every person murdered in his state by an unvetted illegal immigrant that had sanctuary state protection and sanctuary city protection is not going to become a campaign issue? It will be, and it should be. Now we're learning President Trump cracking down on all of this. Democratic leaders all over the country denouncing the president for trying to save crime-ridden cities that they themselves are running. Muriel Bowser calling Trump's, it's unsettling, it's unprecedented. We have the number one homicide rate of any capital of any country on the face of the earth, and you would think that they would welcome the support to keep their citizens safe and secure. That's not the case. Our nation's capital. You know, we have long been the greatest country on earth, but violent crime is out of control. And in large part, Democrats, I put a lot of the responsibility on their insane policies of defund, dismantle, no bail laws and everything else in between. You know, and all these Democratic mayors, and we'll play some of it coming up this hour. But, you know, now we're finding out that this big talking point that they put out yesterday, we're at a 30-year low. What are they talking about? Let me quote the D.C. Police Union chief. To evade public scrutiny, the Metropolitan Police Department leadership is deliberately falsifying crime data, creating a false narrative of reduced crime while communities continue to suffer. Claims by Democrats that they're, you know, the state-run legacy media mob. That was everybody's talking point yesterday. I'm not sure if they're just going to stick with it today and ignore the truth. But if you look at the headline on the D.C. Police Union website, July 18th, less than a month ago, officers in the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department were instructed to downgrade violent crime reports to lesser offenses. The Fraternal Order of Police, which represents D.C. officers, has raised concerns about what they say is a broad practice of manipulating crime classifications to show declines in violent crime that don't exist. Now, the Fraternal Order of Police chairman said officers are frequently instructed by supervisors to downgrade serious felony reports to lesser offenses. The union claims the practice is being directed by the Metropolitan Police Department command staff in an effort to keep reported crime figures low. In a press release that he put out, he said the Metropolitan Police leadership deliberately is falsifying crime data, creating a false narrative of reduced crime while communities are suffering. Wow. And by the way, Washington, D.C. is not the only large Democratic-run city where major crimes are being underreported. You know, we went back, we did a little research. We found in Chicago Magazine back in April of 2014, this troubling practice goes far beyond murders, and documents and interviews reveal Chicago Magazine found dozens of crimes, including serious felonies like robberies, burglaries, assaults, that were misclassified, downgraded to wrist slap offenses, or made to vanish altogether. Many officers of different ranks from different parts of the city recounting instances in which they were asked or pressured by their superiors to reclassify their incident reports, or in which their reports were changed by some invisible hand. One detective refers to the, quote, magic ink, the power to make a case disappear. Said another, rank and file don't agree with what's going on. The powers that be are making the changes. So it looks like their cities are safer than they really are. In New York City, they had an NYPD transit commander accused of, quote, faking New York City subway crime stats. New York Post, March of this year, the head of the NYPD transit district in Queens was stripped of his command amid allegations that he had police reports falsified to downplay subway crimes on his watch, sources telling the New York Post. He said that some citizens have begun hesitating to call the police because they haven't felt that anything meaningful would be done. He placed the blame on prosecutors for not pressing charges. Again, they all have one thing in common: defund, dismantle, no bail laws, and frankly, built-in corruption. I mean, one D.C. councilman who's been charged with taking bribes doesn't like Trump's anti-crime crackdown. So everything that you've heard in the last 24 hours about D.C. based on rank and file and the police union and the Metropolitan Police Department is fake, it's phony, it's fraudulent, it's a lie, and it's been a systemic failure that they've tried to hide and cover up, and this is happening all around the country. Oh, what a shock. Democrats, and of course, by extension, the state-run legacy media mob, they want to cover all this up. And as Janine Pirro pointed out, D.C. laws are letting these young punks off the hook for violent crimes. He even said to me last night, I can't even, I can't touch a 14 to 17-year-old that has a gun, for crying out loud. Well, what do you think's going to happen? How do you think that's going to end? I'll give you the answer: badly. I hope all of you will go to legacybox.com/Hannity today. Get your legacy box. They'll send it to you, 50% off your order. And then you're going to go in your attic and your basement. Then you're going to go in your closets and your garage. And then you're going to ask other family members to do the same. And you're going to find every aging camcorder, VHS tape, film reel, photo, negatives that you have. And you're going to put them all in the box. And they're going to be hand digitized. And they're going to be saved in perpetuity by our friends at Legacy Box. Listen, you spend all the time taking videos when your child is born and a baby's first steps and first day at school and their first Holy Communion and their graduations, their weddings. You're not supposed to let it degrade because of heat, moisture, or mold. No, you're supposed to safeguard your family's memories in perpetuity. And that's what Legacy Box will do for you. They'll hand digitize all these family memories. They'll make it easily accessible. You can enjoy it over and over again, share it with family members. You maybe will get to see and hear from relatives that passed away. And you know that your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will know what you look like and sound like. Don't let your childhood fade away on old tapes. Go to legacybox.com/Hannity. 50% off today. Lock in this low price. Legacybox.com/Hannity. Every family should do it right now.